Welcome to the Hey Boomer Show. My name is Wendy Green, and I'm your host for Hey Boomer. And Hey Boomer is a show for people who believe that we are never too old to set a new goal or dream a new dream. It's for lifelong learners who are finding meaning and purpose in their lives, and they're living their best life in this next chapter. You know, I've been talking about our walk to end Alzheimer's. The walk in Greenville, South Carolina is October 1st. We just got a new walker signed up, Janet Isaac. So thank you, Janet. We've had a couple of new donations come in this past week. So I encourage you all to sign up to walk with us at act.alz.org/go-to/heyboomer. Walk with us, donate, help us eradicate this horrible disease and make some progress in the research that's been going on. And we also have a team that's walking out of California and a team that's walking out of Maryland. So you have options to join any team that you would like. So please go ahead and join us for that. The other thing I've been talking about is the What's Next program. And the What's Next group coaching program is for people that have recently retired, that are looking at retiring, and they're wondering, who am I going to be? Who do I want to be? Will I still be relevant? Will I still be able to contribute to my community, to my family? Will I still feel useful? I mean, these are all big questions. And in the 6-week What's Next group coaching program, I'm going to help you answer those questions. If you'd like to do a 20-minute consultation with me, just to find out more about it, to see if it's the right fit for you, go to the Calendly link, calendly.com/heyboomer/20min, and let's just chat a little bit about where you're at, where you want to be. No obligation at all on that. There is a limited registration, and the next cohort will start on September the 20th. That's a Tuesday, and we meet from 3 to 5. So I hope that you will look into that too. So to introduce today's show, I want to share a story with you. This is a story of an anthropologist who explained a game to the children of an African tribe. He placed a basket of delicious fruit at the base of a tree, and then he explained to the children that whoever reached the basket first would be the one who would get all the fruit. He gave the signal to start, and the children all joined hands and walked towards the basket together. And when they got there, they shared the fruit among themselves. So the anthropologist said, "Now, why did you do that? Why didn't you just go ahead and race to be the first one?" And the children explained, Ubuntu. That is, how can one of us be happy while the rest of us are miserable? Ubuntu means I am because we are. It is the concept that Nelson Mandela used when he was bringing together disparate tribes and communities at the end of apartheid. The word Ubuntu even appears in South Africa's interim constitution, which was created in 1993. There is a need for understanding, but not for vengeance. A need for reparation, but not for retaliation. A need for Ubuntu, but not for victimization. I'm looking forward to learning more about Ubuntu, and we have a great teacher to help us explore this today. And her name is Melanie Gordon. Hi, Melanie.
Well, hi, Wendy.
Let me tell them briefly about you, and then let's dig into this.
Awesome.
In February 2018, Melanie Gordon created the consulting, coaching, and advocacy firm Do.Love.Walk Collective, providing a unique suite of in-person and virtual services and experiences for educational institutions, nonprofits, faith communities, small groups, and individuals who desire to find purpose, grow in compassion, and create communities of belonging in a rapidly changing world. Melanie balances this work with her role as Assistant University Chaplain at Furman. I cannot possibly tell you all about the amazing background of Melanie. It would probably take the full 45 minutes, but let me just give you a couple of highlights. She has a Master of Theology from Duke University. She went on a pilgrimage to East Africa and created a documentary on the Christian response to the genocide in Rwanda. She has been an educator, an advocate for children, and a volunteer in numerous organizations. And for fun, Melanie enjoys 70s sitcoms, documentaries, traveling to unusual places, dark chocolate, and an assortment of musical genres. Very varied background, Melanie. So I want to focus, though, on Ubuntu. And I would like you to first tell me if I'm saying it right and then explain the concept to me.
Yes. Thank you, Wendy. And thank you for having this Gen Xer here with the baby boomers. Love it. Great connection there. Yeah, one of my favorite things when I'm thinking about Ubuntu is to think about if you've ever seen Archbishop Tutu when he is in an interview or talking, his essence is just so amazing. And when he talks about Ubuntu, he puts his hands together and he says, "My humanity is bound up in your humanity."
Mm.
That's Ubuntu. He loves to say Ubuntu.
Ubuntu.
I say Ubuntu, and I think it's a little different depending on where you are in sub-Saharan Africa, how it's said. And Ubuntu means many things. It's a Bantu language in the sub-Saharan African area. It's been practiced for over 2,000 years. And it basically means humanity. I am because you are. I am because we all are. Or a person is a person through other persons. So we are bound up together. We are responsible for one another. I can, it's, I love the story that you used at the beginning. That is a great illustration of Ubuntu in practice. And there's also a proverb that goes, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And that's what Ubuntu is. It's about how do we connect our uniqueness? How do we unify our uniqueness to go far together?
I love that.
Yeah. It's an amazing concept that I think people can learn from in spaces where we talk so much about pulling ourselves up by our bootstraps, right? But what if you don't have boots, or what if you don't have shoes, or what if you don't have feet, right?
Right.
So you need one another to go on this journey. We are created for connection.
Which is, you're right. I mean, in our society, it's a very independent society. So I imagine it's challenging for a lot of people. But tell me, before we get into that, tell me how you first learned about it, Ubuntu.
So like nearly everything I learn about, it's one of those things where I wander into a room and go, what's happening here? Really, that's what it was. So when I was in divinity school, there was a group that was put together, an Ubuntu group, an Ubuntu circle. I believe this was maybe the third year or fourth year that one of the professors had put this group together. And we were looking specifically in this group about at racial reconciliation. So they pretty much invited people, but asked people so there was a balance in the conversation. So I participated in this for the semester, and what I realized from hearing the stories of other people was I had a lot to learn about other people still. Even though people have always interested me, I was blown away by the connection that I had with other people's stories. They were similar to my story, and then stories that I just would not have expected.
Hmm.
That next semester, I took a class on the Rwanda genocide. And within that class, and the Christian response to genocide, that's basically what the class was. And in that class, again, learning more about not realizing at that time the connection between this and Ubuntu.
Mm.
I took this class and it was very difficult. And I decided that I wanted to continue this by going on pilgrimage to Rwanda with Reverend Dr. Emmanuel Katongole, amazing human being. He and his family actually escaped Idi Amin in Uganda when he was.
Wow.
So we went on pilgrimage to hear the stories of survivors of the genocide and also to learn more about their process of truth and reconciliation, which is similar to what happened in South Africa, but not
Okay.
the same. And when I decided to go to take this a little deeper and interview people and get it on film. I wanted it on film. But what I wanted to know was, why did Christians not respond immediately to this? Why were we silent? Why was the world silent? And I found out some things about identity while I was there, and how identity had a lot to do and does have a lot to do with genocide, and that they had papers that identified them in a particular way, very systematic, so that you could so that the government was able to put people into slots. And if you wanted to isolate someone, you could. If you wanted to put the people on the fringes, you could, because of how you already had them identified. But what I also found were these stories, especially from young people, of their identity was more bound up in humanity than being Tutsi or Hutu or Twa. It was, you are human, I am human, we are in this together. And those stories just stuck with me. And immediately in leaving, I'm like, wait a minute. So there's Ubuntu's here. Something is here. And actually in Rwanda, Ubuntu translates to human generosity.
Mm.
And where this really shows up is in a very difficult story of young people who would not, when they were faced with soldiers who were there to take away and massacre groups, they would not identify their friends. They just said, "We are all humans." And
So did they all get taken away?
they were all killed, actually.
Wow.
They saw humanity, their connection so deeply. And I was just struck by this particular story.
Yeah.
And then the other piece in Rwanda was watching people go through this process of reconciliation, forgiveness and reconciliation. And it's a long process. It does not happen overnight. It's not like people come to the table and it's like, okay, we are all happy now and we're going to live together in harmony. That's not the way it happens. There's a lot of truth telling and a lot of time and a lot of coming back to the table that happens. So I realized in coming back to the States, that totally transformed me. And I knew that I had to continuously look at, how are we seeing the humanity in the other? No matter, I just made a decision at that point in time. My work would always be undergirded with, how do we see the humanity in the other? So that's how my introduction to it.
That must have been so intense to be in Rwanda. And it makes me think, though, so as we said, this society, the American society or Western, whatever, is very independent. You know, We're all in it for ourselves, kind of thing. From what you're describing in at least South Africa and Rwanda, you know, this human generosity, I am because you are, it's a totally different mindset. So if you're now working to undergird your work with that mindset in the Western society, that's got to be a struggle. I mean, how is that being received?
Yeah. So, and we have to look at the whole of sub-Saharan Africa with this because we're looking at two very intense situations, but this is a daily way of life all
Mm,
over sub-Saharan Africa for thousands of years. And there are two things that come to mind is individuality is different from individualism, right? Individuality is what makes us unique. How are we created uniquely to contribute to a community? Individualism is more about the ego. It's about
mm,
I. How can I move forward? How can I do this? How can I be successful without really looking at who are the other people in our community that help us to, um, in our terms, be successful. But what happens when we look at being successful, a lot of times we go to one place,
mm,
um, being of power, right?
mm, mhm,
But success can look like a lot of things. Success in relationships, and it doesn't mean like there's a goal. There is a journey with one another that we take. Um, and this can be applied in Western culture in a couple of ways. One is looking at how do we treat the other, as simple as if I look at classroom, teaching in a classroom, how are we open to hearing what other people have to say? So often, and some of my high schoolers would have said, they would say, "Oh, Ms. Gordon, this is weird." I was like, "We're not gonna say weird. We're gonna say different." and and then we're going to sit and open ourselves up to hearing what might be weird to us, but it's not
mm,
really weird. It's just different.
right.
So, in opening ourselves up to hearing someone else's story or someone else's experiences or someone else's histories, we grow ourselves because we are informed by everyone's experience. You know, it all trickles out. There's a trickle out effect, ripple effect. There you go, a ripple effect that whatever happens here is eventually is going to ripple out to us. Um, but also, if we're in a classroom together, um, and learning together, there's something powerful that happens if we're able to hear how another person approaches it based on their own experience and the way that they were raised and the way that they think and believe. It's a richer conversation that helps us to truly think more deeply about what we believe and how we engage with others.
Mhm,
And it can happen even in simple ways. Living Ubuntu happens in simple ways by um, making the time to put your phone away when you're checking out at the grocery, to smiling at people when you pass them on the sidewalk, to letting someone in who's in a hurry if you're not in a hurry. Simple things like that is seeing that behind you don't know what's going on in someone's life and their why if you don't know them. So where can we put in or where can we how can we live Ubuntu by offering the space for people to have a bit of exhale moment.
yeah, so it's kind of like living Ubuntu sounds like it's kind of like, random acts of kindness, but from what you're describing on the Ubuntu circles of really going deeper and opening yourself to people's stories and finding differences, but also some of the shared humanity. Is that right?
Yes, yes. So there are the circles go much deeper, right? They are intense time to go deeper. Everyone wants to um, have a feeling of belonging, right? A deep sense of belonging. That's that's just humanity. That's how we are. You can watch a baby and you see that. They will tell you clear about what they need, and they have this feeling of belonging. They want to feel connected with one another. And so what does it mean in daily life to see the other, to really to to hear the other, to connect with someone on a human level, just for a second? It may be the only second all day long
Hmm.
that they connect with someone. The circles are very different in that you spend time, intentional time, with people's um, experiences in life, based on a prompt that is offered to everyone. Everyone shares a story of a lived experience, their own lived experience. It can't be, I know someone who. We love
Mm.
to tell those stories because we don't have to open up ourselves.
Hmm.
Um, and sometimes we tell stories, I know someone who, because we really haven't had that experience, but we're trying to connect to this person in front of us and say, I understand. But when we tell a story that's really about something we've experienced ourselves, and the other person has time to sit with that, we start to see where, number one, we are connected to one another. And number two, how we can offer compassion around something we may not have understood until we heard this story.
Hmm. Now, if you still don't understand, you hear the story and you're still like, I don't get it. Are you allowed to ask more questions?
Yeah.
No.
It's very, and yes, I can see it. People are like, wait, but how does this work? Well, one of the things that we have to be respectful of is that it's someone's story to tell. Is it your story to tell? This is another thing, another one of my phrases. Is it your story to tell? I ask people that all the time, because we should have the right to tell as much of our story or as little of our story as we want. And the person who is the listener, there are times when you need to be able to sit with that and understand, this is what someone wants to share. I need to stop here and I need to sit with what they have what they have told me and shown me, and just sit with it. There's nothing here to fix. There's nothing here to respond to. There's only something here to learn.
Hmm.
And if you look at how we really are, I mean, this goes into listening, how we listen. So often we listen to respond to someone, and we're already in our minds thinking about how we can respond. Or we're listening to fix something, and we're already starting to think, when they're telling the story, how we can fix this. But so often, what is needed is to listen deeply, to get a deep sense of belonging. I mean, a deep, I'm sorry, to do some deep listening, which is hearing, so that we can better understand the person in front of us based on what they present to us. And that means we don't fix anything. And people hear this and go, well, how does this work? And it does. It does because you have time and you've postured yourself to just be a receiver to someone's story. And you start to see how we are connected. A lot of times you see that this person has gone through something that really connects with you. For instance, I was telling you I was doing a facilitator training this weekend, and someone told, and I usually don't participate when we do the drills and all the stuff that we do to prep people be facilitators within their context. And someone told a story that immediately I was like, something just in me, I was like, oh my gosh, I get this. So I never got it before, but I get this because of
Mm.
these things you said. And it, I had a new, deeper understanding for something that I did not have before this weekend. And I've been doing this since 2005.
Isn't that powerful?
It is. It really is.
Huh. So it has been used in the reconciliation work that Nelson Mandela did, which means that he had to bring together very disparate groups of people that really were not very friendly to each other.
Mhm.
And they had to learn how to be able to sit and talk and share stories and gain understanding. Is that how it worked?
So what the two circles that 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 I lead and train people to do are based in it's the pre-work. So what you have to think about is we live in a society where Ubuntu is not the norm for us.
Hmm.
So part of this is about making it part of our own story. How do we make seeing humanity in another part of our own story? How do we see understanding we have a responsibility as human beings to one another, putting that in our own story first? So it's like the pre-work. So
Okay.
circles are the pre-work, so that you're laying the groundwork to deepen compassion for others. And then what happens in these communities is when you become a more compassionate person, when there is conflict, you are able to come to the table in a different posture because you're already set up to see the humanity in another human being. You know that you are bound together, and this work is very important. And you have to think about also apartheid was something just huge, violent, devastating, um, and Ubuntu circles were not what was used with that. This is a lot of negotiation and going back to, they did a lot of going back to what does it mean to live in harmony with one another, not just they wanted to go beyond um, being tolerance,
Compassion. Yeah.
living compassionately with one
Okay.
another. And
So we're going to offer, I'm very excited about this. We're going to offer Hey Boomer Ubuntu Hey Boomer Ubuntu Circle, which is a 7-week program, right? And we're limiting it to how many?
12.
12. No more than 12 people can join this. And it's going to start on September the 22nd. And it will teach us the tools of Ubuntu and listening and compassion. And I believe that if we all go through this together, this is just like spreading the dandelions into the wind, because now we'll come out with all of this compassion and ability to relate more, and then we can spread that to others. Am I excited about this in the right way?
Yes, and that's one of the things is people are like, well, what do you do afterwards, right? So you have these circles, you come together and you share these stories based on a particular prompt that's crafted for each group. They're um, they will be different for each group, and you learn you you gain a sense of belonging because you have a shared experience together. You feel more connected to humanity and to one another, and you grow in compassion. And what happens is that because someone has shared their story with you, or different stories, you start to see in other human beings these stories play out, and you respond differently. You become more compassionate with other people because now you realize that someone who may look like they have it all together,
Mhm.
they may not have it all together. I don't know. I don't know many people that have it all together, but you also realize that some things that you may have judged much differently, you've now heard a story and you're like, wait, I never saw this before. You start to see things you never saw before. You start to address things differently because now you're seeing them differently.
I'm super excited about this. And you
Excited
told
every
me how transformative it is. So, if you want to join us, it's $68 for the 7 weeks, which is such a great deal, I think. You can go to bit.ly/Ubuntu. That's UBUNTU, boomer, and the number 1. So I hope you guys will join me on this. I cannot wait to get started. So it's going to be September 22nd. Doris, go onto that website and sign up. um, so in your Do.Love.Walk Collective, you do more than Ubuntu Circles. So tell me a little bit more about that also.
I do. So, and we're actually going through a shift in focus this fall. And there are a couple of things from that I will be focusing on and putting more energy into. I do work in diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, focusing mostly on the belonging piece.
Do
So,
they have that in the title? Belonging?
belonging,
I
DEI
love that.
is a thing.
Okay.
Around for quite a while,
I heard that.
outside of the US, mainly, but I'm starting to see it pop up at their places. And I'm focusing on the belonging piece because number one, I believe that's where my strength is in helping institutions and groups to look at how we create healthy communities and see everybody and everyone has a voice and within the community. And so I do that work and have done that work with churches and nonprofits and different groups in academic settings also. And the other is that I'm still continuing to do work with children's ministers. And so one of the things is that happens that I learned in seminary is that so many pastors don't have an opportunity to have classes on children's faith formation. So my work for 10 years was in children's faith formation and helping children's ministers and pastors to understand what is happening as far as brain development and all the different pieces of development for children at that age and how to address that within faith communities, all kinds of faith communities. So it's always a lot of fun. I do some coaching with children's ministers in that, and also doing the Ubuntu Circles. And one of the big things I'm adding is living Ubuntu. So helping. Um, so let me go back to the reasoning behind the living Ubuntu that I've picked up
Mhm.
is that what some business people have told me is that they're having a hard time keeping employees and because they may decide, oh, they pay a little bit more over here, so I'm going over here. So loyalty is they can't figure out what is this loyalty piece. But what would it mean to have an entire organization that is living in this um, i- in this world of Ubuntu, living in with Ubuntu undergirding what they do? And I'm already working with a camp and retreat center on this and doing this across their entire employee structure, which I find very exciting in that they will have a shared language and they will be living into seeing the humanity in one another and offering compassion in ways that they haven't done before, and creating that sense of belonging for their employees, so that it trickles out to the people they serve. So that's kind of, I'm excited about that.
Yeah, what an amazing organization that would be to work for. If if everybody had a shared humanity, shared understanding. Wow.
We're working on that.
Oh, yeah. Um, so um, so that's what's next with Do Love Walk. And how did you get that name, Do Love Walk?
So it's funny. Several people said, just name it after you. I'm like, "Oh, I don't want to name anything after me." But one of the something that's guided me most of my life is do justice, love mercy, walk humbly, which is from Micah in the Old Testament. And I felt like, and I feel like all of my work has been focused there in doing justice. Um, um, Especially, and loving mercy and being merciful, and finding that space of connecting human beings, being actually humbled by the experience of other people and by this world that we're in. And it just made sense to me to give it that name. And I don't know, I think it's worked for me, I guess.
I like that. So you just shortened it. Do justice, love mercy, walk humbly became Do Love Walk. Very nice. Hi, Evelyn. Nice to see you. I met Evelyn last night, so I had to say hi.
Oh.
All right. So I always like to ask my guests one final question, and that is that as you know, Hey Boomer is for those of us who believe we are never too old to set another goal or dream a new dream. So give me 2 or 3 takeaways from what the work is that you're doing and what you hope to bring to the world, and how that's going to something that we can benefit from.
Yeah, it's 3 words for me: joy, purpose, and compassion. So, a really good friend of mine during a very difficult time in my life said to me, every day, just try to find joy and purpose. Try to find joy and purpose. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to try and find joy and purpose. And it was amazing how well that worked for me in starting the day looking for the joy, searching for the joy, and in finding the purpose, looking for the purpose. And so I think that's important for all of us. And the other is constantly figuring out ways to grow in compassion for other people. I think those are 3 things that are guiding for me. They're guiding for my work, and they're guiding in my life.
Not always easy, but I think, yeah,
Not easy.
right. I know. And I think people, it's a whole other conversation, but I think people get hung up on the purpose, like it has to be this big capital P purpose.
Mm-mm.
I mean, my purpose today is to talk to you.
Exactly. And this is my purpose today. So check. Just, but even so, it's some days, especially hard days. Looking back, and I think the more we look back at our day and reflect on what we've been through and search for those places where there has been joy and purpose, the more joy and purpose we've actually experienced without realizing it.
Yeah. I try to write down a gratitude journal every evening. And sometimes you're right. Sometimes it's hard. You're like, oh, but yeah. So you can find Melanie on Instagram at Do.Love.Walk Collective. So be sure to go there and follow her on Instagram.
Yes, please.
You can check out her website at dolovewalk.co, not com, but .co. Okay. You can even email her at melcgordon at Do.Love.Walk.co. And don't miss this. Sign up to be in our private Hey Boomer Ubuntu Circle by going to bit.ly/Ubuntu Boomer1. So I'm looking forward to seeing as many of you there as possible. And sign up before the spaces are all gone. So thank you, Melanie. What an amazing, I love this concept. And I've seen several comments about how people are loving this concept. So I think we're gonna change the world.
Our corner, at least.
Our little corner, right? So let me just remind you all about our Walk to End Alzheimer's. This is also a way to live Ubuntu by sharing and giving. So join our walk or donate by going to act.alz.org/go-to/heyboomer. Let's fill up the coffers and fill up the walk team. And if you want to learn more about the What's Next group coaching program, sign up to have a 20-minute conversation with me. No obligation at all, just a friendly conversation to learn more about you and learn more about me. You can go to calendly.com/heyboomer/20min, MIN. So look forward to talking to you and helping you work through what's confusing. And please, next Monday's Labor Day. So I assume a lot of people are going to be doing other things. So we're not going to do a show for Monday for Labor Day. But September's theme is about family relationships. And we're going to kick off September 12th talking to Margaret Novak about some of the challenges that families face when they have to move one of their senior loved ones into a senior living facility and how that can affect family relationships. Then we're going to talk to Gramps Jeffrey about what he sees as the role of grandparents in families. And then finally, we're going to talk with Janine Vandenberg about celebrations of aging and how to do those respectfully instead of all these, oh, you're getting so old jokes. And I always like to leave you with the belief that we can all live with passion, live with relevance, and live with courage. And remember, we are never too old to set another goal or dream a new dream. My name is Wendy Green, and this has been Hey Boomer. Thanks, Mel.